Okay, here is your video summary for Chapter 11, where we're talking about retailing and wholesaling, and mostly we're talking about retailing. The first thing we start talking about here is the different types of major store retailers. And there's a couple different ways to divide these stores up. First, you can break them up by level of service. Full service, self-service, limited service, something like that. You can also categorize these stores by product line, and we'll talk a good bit more about that one. And another way to categorize stores is by their organizational makeup, so franchises or chains or independents and that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about the different types of retailer stores, and mostly in this part here we're talking about product line. So, oops, sorry about that. Let me make this a little bit smaller here. Okay, so the first thing here I want to talk about is specialty stores. And so these are stores that carry narrow, deep product lines. They carry just clothes or like a florist or something like that. And so they won't carry a lot of different things, but what they do carry, they have lots of different varieties in. Number two would be a department store, and I think most of you know what department stores are. They'll have several different product lines in there. They'll have multiple product lines in there. So JCPenney's or Sears or something like that. Either of these specialty or department they could be like self-service here, or they could have limited service. So this can kind of mix in with these. The service and the product lines aren't mutually exclusive. A third type here is a supermarket. And again, this would be, what a supermarket is. The focus here is on having a lot of different things, having high turnover, low margins, and this is the most frequently visited type of store. Another type here would be a convenience store. So these guys are going to have a limited product line. They're going to focus on high turnover. And an interesting thing about that would be that they're now trying to target women more than they ever used to, which is kind of an interesting development in that market there. A fifth type of store here would be a discount store. So this would be like a department store. Again, they're going to have lower margins, like lower profit margins, lower prices, again counting on that high turnover. Also, the supermarkets are the same thing, but obviously a discount store is going to have a wider range of product lines than a convenience store would. So that would be Target or Walmart or something like that. A sixth type here would be off-price. These are selling they're selling them below retail prices because they purchased them for below retail prices. So Sam's, any of those warehouse clubs would be, or the outlets would be examples of off-price. And number 7 is the Superstore. So this would be a supermarket plus a discount store combined. So the Super Walmart or the Target Super Centers or something like that would fall under that one. They're not always going to be this. Also in this we have what we would consider giant specialty stores. These are also called category killers. So these would be things that are so big in that category it makes it hard for something else to be competitive. PetSmart would be in that, or Best Buy for electronics, something like that. So they kind of specialize in one thing, but they're huge. And so that's another development in stores there. The next thing we want to talk about here, so when a retailer is making a decision, they have to make the same marketing decisions that we've talked about here. They have to segment the market. They have to decide which segments they're going to target. They have to differentiate themselves. And then they have to position themselves. So the same concepts that we talked about in an earlier chapter. So ways that they can segment, ways that they can differentiate and position themselves could be based on level of service. So we spoke up above there about how you can have convenience goods. So you can have self-service, which would be convenience goods, things that you need to get quickly, something like that. You could have limited service where you get some assistance. So think Sears and appliances, when you go into the major appliance, if you're in the clothes, somebody might come over and say, do you need any help with this? I always think in the appliances, they're on you in a hurry like that. But if I'm, if I'm clothes shopping at Kohl's, I'm pretty much on my own. If I'm clothes shopping at Macy's, for example, somebody might come up and offer to help me, something like that. You've got other things that are full service. So these might be like really high-end department stores or services like insurance. A lot of times you would have it right there. Some places offer a personal shopper. If you go into the American Girl store, somebody will approach you right away and they can offer you a shopper to help you spend more money. Another way to differentiate or position yourself as a retailer is on the product assortment that you offer. So whether you you might separate yourself because you have unusual offerings. You might surprise your people, or you might carry brands that somebody else doesn't carry, or you might just differentiate yourself based on the depth of the product line, how many different varieties of that product that you have. And then another way to differentiate and position yourself is atmosphere. So you can create an atmosphere that really gives the impression of high quality or something like that. Cabela's has, if you've ever been to those, it's like you're outdoors there. I mean, they've really spent a lot of effort developing the atmosphere there, and that's another way to differentiate yourself. Okay, long ago, the stores or towns had a downtown shopping area, and obviously Hagerstown doesn't have a thriving downtown shopping area anymore. In our town, like most of them now, have shopping centers. Location is the most important thing for a retailer. It's huge. And so we talk about different types of shopping centers. A regional shopping center would be anywhere between 15 and 100 stores, usually at least 2 department stores. So a mall would be a regional shopping center. So the Valley Mall would be a regional shopping center. You also have community shopping centers. They're going to be smaller than a mall. So anywhere between 15 and 50, you'll probably have a department store, you'll have a supermarket, you'll have some specialty stores and services. I'm thinking maybe I'm trying to think of a good example. So it's like a small mall, but it could be kind of an outdoor one, like that one across from Longmeadow might fall into that community. Neighborhood shopping centers are going to be those are going to be kind of the strip malls that we think of, and those are pretty common. There's a lot of those around. That is the most common type. So we would have anywhere between 5 and 15 stores. You're probably going to have a discount store, maybe a supermarket, and some service things. Like the strip center there where Target is would be an example of that type of thing. You're also going to have power centers. This is going to be just a really large strip mall that's going to have several big anchors. So the shopping center out there where Walmart and Home Depot and the PetSmart, all that would be a good example of a power center. They have lots of big ones, and they're all grouped together, but they're all individual. They all have their own private entrances. Another one that has developed is a lifestyle center. And so this is like an upscale strip mall, like an upscale neighborhood one, but it's going to might have a playground in it, and some movie theaters maybe, and so it's more than just shopping. So they're trying to really appeal to the whole neighborhood and have all of that. I think the closest around here we have is there's one in Frederick where the Champions is, and I'm trying to remember what else is there. The Macaroni Grill is there. I think that would be the closest thing we have around here to a lifestyle center, but especially in more metropolitan areas, you'll see some of those lifestyle centers over there. Okay, some trends in retailing. First of all, there are 7 trends, not 6. One is in the post-recession economy, we see tighter consumer spending. So, consumers are still spending, but they're being a little more careful with their dollar, and so that affects retailers. You don't want to jump on the discount bandwagon though right away, because people, you don't want to ruin the image that you've built up. So it's something that we need to consider, but it doesn't mean you want to change your whole plan because of that. And any of these are like that. New retail forms are creeping up, and technology has had a lot to do with this. And what that means then is we end up with shorter life cycles. Things are here and then they're gone. Kiosks in the mall, or these temporary ones, like the ones that show up, the stores that show up around Halloween with the costumes, and they're there for a little bit and then they're gone. And so things like that creeping up, and then so the forms of retail are changing faster than they have before. We also have what's called retail convergence. And what that really means is the customer has a lot of different places they can go to buy the same thing. And if I know what I want, if I want a movie, I could go to Best Buy and get it. I could go to FYE and get it, but I could also go to Amazon and get it. Or I could download it. I have a lot of different options now, and so it's tough to compete on price because of that. So you have to be able to offer something that they can't. They all kind of blur together. We also have here the rise of the mega retailers. We have these huge mass marketers, retail, Target and Walmart and all that kind of stuff. We have these big specialty superstores, Best Buy, and all. It makes it hard for the little guy, and so it's changed the way they have to do this. There's also a lot of mergers going on that lead to these mega retailers, but it doesn't mean the small guy can't compete. You just have to be able to offer what they can't, and a lot of times that's service. And so you see a lot of smaller ones trying to differentiate themselves based on the depth or the product line or the level of service that they can offer. Also, we see the growth of direct and online, and so we'll spend a whole chapter on that because that is huge. We see technology becoming more and more important, and you've kind of seen that I think interwoven throughout all the chapters here. but everything from inventory to knowing your customer, technology is all through there. We see an increase in green retailing, whether it be what they sell, but more often how they produce stuff, and it saves the retailer money, and it also helps their image by being a little bit greener. And then we also see more global expansion by chains, and not just the U.S. chains. Some of the biggest worldwide chains are ones that we haven't even heard of here in the U.S. So that changes that as well. And those are all things that might not be within the retailer's control, but the things they need to be aware of when they're coming up with their plan. The last thing, there's two things here. Let's talk briefly about wholesalers. Wholesalers are the middlemen that go between the manufacturer and the retailer. So some of the things that wholesalers do, one is they help sell and promote. So they have lots of contacts. So if you're a manufacturer, going through a wholesaler might really help increase your sales. If you're trying to do it yourself, it might be tougher. If you go through a wholesaler, they have lots of potential contacts. And again, a lot of this we're talking business to business things, so the contacts, the consumers would be businesses. And also, wholesalers are often very trustworthy, so they can really, especially if you're a manufacturer, they can really help you sell your product and push your product out there. They do buying and assortment building, which is really super helpful for smaller retailers, small to medium retailers, because maybe they can't afford to buy in bulk like those bigger retailers, and so the wholesaler can kind of conduct that function for you. Along those same lines is what they call bulk breaking. They can buy in huge quantities and get that discount and then break it up to smaller retailers, and so that smaller retailers can get some of the advantage of buying in huge bulk, and it helps them be a little bit more competitive with some of the those giant retailers that we were just talking about. Another one here, another important function that they conduct is warehousing. And so this can really help reduce inventory costs for retailers if they don't have to store it. Also, if they maintain the warehousing, then they take on the some of the risk and the cost associated with maintaining the inventory, which can be a huge help to the retailer. They provide transportation. They will often also provide financing for retailers. They also bear part of the risk. So if something happens during transportation or during warehousing, they're responsible for it, and so the lower the risk for the retailers, the more likely they would be to engage in the transaction, which can be a benefit for both the seller, who's the manufacturer in this case, and the retailer. They also provide some very valuable marketing information. They're out there, again, we talked about they have lots of contacts, so they can share that information both ways, back to the manufacturer, say here's what's selling, here's what's not, here's what your competitors are doing, and also for the retailers, the same type of thing. And the last function that they often perform are management services, training to salespeople, so support like that, so sharing some of the things they know with the retailer. So they can provide a lot of, to save costs, a lot of wholesalers and retailers are tempted to skip the middleman and sell direct. So for wholesalers, it's really important for them to do these things well and to really say, it's going to cost you a little bit more, but here are all the advantages. And so it's becoming, they have to really push those advantages there in order for people not to just skip them. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about in here is the 3 different types of wholesalers. We have second here. Okay, we have merchant wholesalers. These are independent companies or independent individuals who actually take ownership of the merchandise. So I buy it from the manufacturer, and then I own it, and then I need to resell it to the retailer. So they actually own it during that process, and of course, they take on the risk there that they purchase it and are unable to buy it, so that's always a risk for them. There are also agent or broker wholesalers, and these guys do not take ownership. All they are is they facilitate, not take ownership. So they facilitate the buying and the selling. They get the buyers and the sellers together, but they don't actually take ownership of the merchandise themselves. And then the third type is a manufacturer's sales branch or sales office, or also a purchasing office would be the same thing. So it's actually it's a section of a company who is performing the wholesaling activities themselves. So if the manufacturer has a separate sales office or something like that, that would be a manufacturer's wholesaling doing, but they're not a separate company, whereas these two are separate companies, separate middlemen in there. Okay, so that's chapter 11 for you.